Hey there, how's it going? My name is David and you're watching Kai City RC. Welcome back to the channel. This video is not like a race report or anything like that. I've received several emails this year, most recently a few days ago in fact, asking for more details, more information on the marshal-less style racing that is popular over here. Whether you want to call it marshal-less or deathmatch style or team Chonmage style, I'm just going to use the term marshal-less. A lot of people are interested in setting up similar race series wherever they are, and they've been asking me for more information. So I realized that I got kind of bits and pieces spread over several different videos, but in this video I want to consolidate it all down into just one single video. So in this video I'm going to try and answer as many questions as I can. If that interests you, stick around, stay tuned. If not, I'll catch you in the next one. Okay, so before we go any further, a couple of things. First, I am terrible, absolutely terrible, hopeless at explaining rules and regulations. Apologies in advance. And secondly, if you're on Facebook, I do recommend you check out Club 380. I'll put a link in the video description. They're a Facebook group. They're based in the UK. They've started to run a race series based on marshal-less racing, Pine Beach Raceway, deathmatch style, 380 motors. Again, links in the description. Their Facebook page has lots of useful information, so if you're interested, go check them out. Okay, so next, marshal-less racing. The whole point of marshal-less racing is to have the lowest possible barrier to entry to racing, to be as laid back, as relaxed as possible. So there are very few regulations. You don't need transponders. No timing gear is required. There are no marshals required. So it's something that can be done on a whim anywhere. You and a group of friends can turn up at the park, set up a course and do some marshal-less style racing. So the barrier to entry is very low. Typically, the races are 3 laps long. The reason for that, again, there's no timing gear. So the more laps you do, the more difficult it is to keep track of who's done how many laps and where they are. So 3 is not a particularly long race. So generally speaking, you'll do, I'm going to use the term sets because it starts to get confusing, rounds, heat, sets. At least it does to me, but I'm going to use the term set. So for marshal-less racing, you do a single race will be 3 laps and you will do 3 sets. So you do 3 laps and then immediately tally the points, line up on the starting grid and do another 3 laps. And then immediately tally the points again, line up on the start grid and do another 3 laps. So you do 3 sets of 3 laps and that will be qualifying done. Typically, for Konos' night races, Konos is my local indoor RC track where we do night racing. Typically, you'll do 3 sets of 3 for qualifying. So I got some questions about, well, okay, what happens after what happens if you crash? Obviously, as the name suggests, no marshals. So if you crash, wherever you've crashed, wherever you've become stuck is where you stay until the end of the race. At no point can anybody kind of move you out of the way. So let's say, for example, you're flipped over, you're upside down, right in the middle, at the end of the main straight. You might be tempted to kind of like, okay, I'm out of the race, but I want to move my car out of the way. No, that's where you stay until the end of the race. And sometimes it does mean that you're essentially a sitting duck. But invariably, I found that if someone does crash into you, almost always results in them putting you back on your wheels and allowing you to continue. And so that is allowed. If you become stuck, but then later, before the race is finished, someone knocks into you and you're able to continue, then you can do so and cross the finish line. So that's another key point. No marshals means exactly what it means. You stay where you are until the end of the race. The next question I got is, well, what happens when you cross the finish line? So obviously with no timing gear, you need some way of being able to determine who crossed the finish line in what order. So that's why if you look at the track layout, the starting grid is not how it would normally be set up, kind of staggered across the full width of the lane of the track on the main straight. It's always pushed off to the side. And the reason for that is, let's say you cross the finish line first. Typically at Konosa, you would stop your car in position 1 on the starting grid. So across the finish line first, you stop your car in position 1. Across the finish line second, you stop your car in position 2. Across the finish line third, in position 3, and so on and so forth. Now, if your starting grid is staggered using the full width of the lane, then you're going to end up creating lots of obstacles, and it's going to be somewhat dangerous. So the starting grid is always off to the side. Now, if you've got the space and you've got, like, for example, some kind of paddock area where you could drive off and line up and not obstruct the track, that would be ideal. I believe Club 380, their races have that kind of setup. But if you don't, then your starting grid needs to be off to the side of the track so that when the people that have crossed the finish line waiting in the starting grid, they're not blocking the path and creating obstacles for those that are still running around. Okay, so next up is point system, and this is something where it's really just down to the organizers. Some organizers, you get awarded points, and the more points you get, then the better you are. And other organizers, you get points, and the less points you have, the better you are. So, for example, for Carnosa, just as off the top of my head, let's say you cross the finish line, you get 50 points for being first. For second, you get 40 points. For third, you get 25 points or whatever. I believe Tamiya, their Blockhead Motors, they didn't really explain the point system when I was there a few weeks ago, but it seemed like if you crossed the finish line first, you got 1 point. If you crossed the finish line second, you got 2 points. Third was 3 points. And then when it was all over, whoever got the least number of points was the winner. So I guess they assigned kind of like 10 penalty points if you failed to cross the finish line or something like that. Again, the points, exactly, numerical value doesn't really matter, but it's just a points-based system. So going back to the race, you race 3 laps. You cross the finish line, you park up on the starting grid in the order you finished, and then as soon as the race is over, the points are tallied. Whoever's got the most points will start race 2 right at the back. So it's a reverse grid, essentially, reverse grid. And I got a few questions. Well, let's say you've got 2 or 3 people who are knocked out. What happens then? Again, it depends on the organizers. So at Carnosa, my local track, what they tend to do is, let's say for the first race, 3 people get knocked out. For race 2, those 3 people will have 0 points. They'll all start at pole position, and on the starting grid, they'll line up side by side. And then they race, starting side by side for the second race. Other places try to keep a track of who got knocked out when. So, for example, let's say person A gets knocked out on the first corner of lap 1. So for race 2, they will start in pole position. But person B got knocked out in lap 2, so they're going to start behind them in second place for the second race. And then person C, for example, got knocked out just before crossing the finish line of the final lap, and so they're going to start in position 3 for the second race, if that makes sense. And that's perhaps a fairer system, but it makes it difficult to, particularly if you've got a lot of racers, to keep track of who got knocked out when. Carnosa's system does have its simplicity, but it also means like sometimes you've got like 5 or 6, maybe even 7 people who all got knocked out and they've all got 0 points. So for race 2, they're all in a big line right at the front in pole position. Again, it makes racing interesting. So yeah, you race 3 laps, you cross the finish line, the points are tallied. Whoever's got the most points, you're at the back. Whoever's got the least points, you're at the front. You race again, you do 3 more laps, the points are tallied again. Whoever's got the most points, you're at the back. Whoever's got the least points, you're at the front. And you just do that. So 3 laps, 3 sets of 3 laps, qualifying is done. And then throughout the evening, or as the race progresses, you'll do qualifying rounds. And then once the qualifying rounds are finished and you've got a list of drivers and their points, then you get split up into A main, B main, C main, whatever. Another aspect of marshal-less racing is the chance for promotion, progression. So let's say, for example, you finish qualifying and you find yourself in the C main. If you win the C main, so you get the most points in the C main, you get promoted into the B main. And then you can win the B main. Theoretically, you could win the B main and get promoted to the A main. And then if you would win the A main, you win the overall event. And I've seen that happen, I think, on 2 occasions where someone has gone literally through every single main and ultimately won the event overall at the end of the evening. Chonmage also do another nice little bonus race. They call it the zombie round, which is basically after the lower mains are finished, the C main, for example, and the B main, right before the A main, there's this zombie round, which is basically anyone that is not already in the A main gets one last chance to go out on track. And if they win the zombie round, they get a spot in the A main. Sometimes you can have upwards of 18 cars on the track at the same time, which when the track is pretty small, it makes for some very interesting racing. So that's pretty much how racing works over here. Again, different organizers will tweak the rules and have different approach. Tamiya had the Blockhead Motors Outdoor Fest the other week. They had a Kachinokori system, which basically means if you win, you get to stay in the race, and if you lose, you're out of the race. And so you need to keep winning in order to keep staying in the race until the very end. I'm guessing people watching this video are interested in setting up similar race series at their local track or with friends. There are no hard and fast rules. Just set it up how you think it might work, test it out. If it's not working, adjust the rules and just have fun, basically. Like I said, there's no hard and fast rules. It's all just to have some light-hearted racing with friends. The smaller the rule book, the better, in my opinion. There's plenty of high-end, hyper-competitive racing out there, where you've got a rule book that is 50 pages long and covers everything. It's nice to have races where the rules are very much open. I haven't talked about machine rules because the machine rules, again, every race is different depending on what kind of racing what kind of machines you're racing. So I'm not really going to touch about machine rules in this video, but it's more just about the actual race format and how it works. At the end of the day, whoever's got the most points will be the overall winner. The way Chonmage organizes it is obviously once you get put into the mains, if you come first place in the A main, you get more. Well, let's say I take a step back. If you win one of the A main races, you get more points than if you win one of the B main races than if you won one of the C main races. I should also point out that typically the mains, for example, the C main will be 3 sets of 3, just like the qualifying heats. However, the B main would be 4 sets of 3 laps. And the A main is typically 5 sets of 3 laps. So if you are in the A main, you do more racing, which means more points, which means you are more likely to win the event overall. Because it is actually possible I believe it's possible. Again, I'm terrible at explaining these things, but I believe it's actually possible to not come first in the A main, but still win the overall race just because you've gained the most points, if that makes sense. In fact, I did it earlier this year. I didn't win, but I got a lot of points because I was running my RC10 video, link in the description, and I was constantly having turnbuckles popped off. And so I ended up in the D main. At qualifying, I got almost, I think I was at the bottom in terms of points, and I ran in the D main and I won it, so I got promoted to the C main, and I won that and I got promoted to the B main. I didn't win the B main, but I was put in the zombie race, won the zombie race and got into the A main. And because I raced so much throughout the evening, a lot of times I got knocked out because the turnbuckle popped off and I was unable to continue. But when the turnbuckles didn't pop off, I usually did well enough that I would actually win that round, so to speak. And so I'd actually gained quite a lot of points just by virtue of the fact of being in pretty much every single main, the D, C, B, and the A main. So it's possible to actually win an event without actually coming first in the A main, if that makes sense. Anyway, I'm waffling now, so I'll wrap this up. I hope you found this video useful. If you have any questions, let me know in the comments below. I will try to answer them in a timely fashion, but work has been crazily busy for me recently, and I've just not really had much time for RC or YouTube or social media full stop, and so it might take me a while to get to your comments. Once again, Club 380 Facebook group, they have lots of useful information. I also believe Team Chonmage, their YouTube channel, they did an English language video talking about their rules and regulations, so you might want to go and check that out as well. Thank you for watching. My name is David. This is Kai City RC. I'll catch you in the next one.